cheese, no design on my jacket. Work hard, now I'm changing my bracket. Talk tough, we ain't hearing that racket. Dots came in, you know how to stack it. Don't take it wrong, but I'ma need my ends though. I got tigers on my chest like Kenzo. Rail came, yeah, he putting that Benz though. Carol's here, man, you know he stay 10 toes. Big dog, man, you know I ain't worried. Bent up, so I'm talking real slurry. Got a blast, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's going on, everybody? This is Adam Caplan, the voice in your ears. How you like my blue dress shirt? It's looking a little loose on me. Why? Because I've been putting in that work. We're focusing on our calories. We're focusing on our diet, and we're dialed in. Why? Because as I stated last episode, or the episode before that, I'm the happiest I've ever been. You guys could probably see it on the AC radio show. And, I attribute that to my family. I attribute that to the birth of my son, as I said. So shout out to young Hirsch. I love you, buddy. And let's get this show on the road because we got a lot of Q&As. Thanks to everybody who tuned in with the questions. And to start it off, we got about 8 fight questions, some of them boxing related, some of them MMA related, and then some of them also perhaps what the viewer should take on as a martial art if they want to be confident, in the streets. So let's get right to it. First things first, got my man Jerry. Shout out to Jerry, always coming through with a great question. How do you see Kamaru Usman looking upon his return? How do you think being knocked out like that will impact him? And do you think he will carry himself / fight with the same confidence? That's an interesting one. And even Ariel Helwani was going, pretty hard in the paint on Usman being 35 years old, being knocked out versus Leon Edwards with 56 seconds left in the 5th round. A lot of folks are saying he cuts a lot of weight. He's big for the weight class. And, perhaps he has a lot of miles on him. And then a KO like that could really change him. I'm kind of like, all right, guys, let's slow our roll here. Yeah, he's 35 years old, but he's clearly one of the most elite athletes in the UFC. He clearly has a well taken care of body, minus a few injuries. And, lastly, he's got great conditioning, great work ethic. He doesn't blow up too much in between camps. So if Kamaru Usman takes the appropriate amount of time to sit aside to, let this injury heal itself, I think Kamaru Usman will be fine. My biggest issue would be if Kamaru Usman is worried about losing his spot in line to fight for the title, and then he would come back early. That would concern me, because you never really know how the brain has actually healed after getting KO'd like that, especially shin to the skull. So I think that Kamaru Usman could very well come back, really even retain the fight, retain the title. So, Ariel Helwani and other fans were really giving Kamaru Usman a lot of flack, and quite frankly, I don't see it that way. I think that Kamaru could come back, having the fact that he's taken off the right amount of time, because your brain, you don't know actually what is going on in there. You can get as many scans as possible, but the truth will only show up when it's too late. And we've seen that time and time again with athletes. So that's my answer there. I think that Usman is more than capable of coming back and being a force in the welterweight division and winning his title back. So thanks a lot, Jerry. Shout out to Venom Barbershop, my guy. And then I got Jay Fish. What is the one fight you recommend for someone who wants to get into UFC / boxing? Arturo Gotti versus Mickey Ward. That was a classic. Diego Sanchez versus Clay Guida. Stephan Bonner versus Forrest Griffin. Rampage Jackson versus Vanderlei Silva. All 3 fights. The first 2 in Pride, the third one in the UFC. And lastly, I got to go with, on the boxing side, let's go with Canelo Alvarez versus James Kirkland, just because that left hook knockout was so unbelievably beautiful. I literally just spaced out thinking about it. It was so unbelievably beautiful the way he basically turned him off the ropes, KOing him. It was just an emphatic KO, and, everybody loved Canelo, so I got to add in Canelo there. Much love to Jay Fish. I appreciate that, man. And, for those of you who are looking to get into UFC and boxing, give it a shot. Everyone's always tuning into AC Radio and saying, I love the I love the fitness. I love the motivation. You go hard in the paint, man. But the fight stuff, it's hard for me to keep up. Anybody who gives the fight segments a chance on AC radio will know that I'm breaking it down to the level that a casual or even an intermediate to advanced fan could keep up with the storyline and the dialogue and the in-cage action. So, put those headphones in, go on a walk, get a pump going, cuddle up next to your girl, and let's get that fight segment going, So shout out to Fish and Jerry. Next one, I got my man Reed, and Elan and Chris also asked the same question. So I had 3 people asking the same question. How do I feel about the match between Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk? Well, I mean, look, like I said last time when I was wearing my Versace bathrobe, I told you, I don't think this is going to be the last time that we're going to see Tyson Fury, but if it is, then so be it. Hats off to Tyson Fury. But after Alexander Usyk was victorious against Anthony Joshua in Saudi Arabia by a questionable split decision, let's be real here, now we got Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk on the rise, and I can't wait for that fight. Usyk is a crafty southpaw who's going to pose difficulties for Tyson Fury. But on the flip side, Tyson Fury is 6'9". He could fight in both stances. He's got great footwork, great head movement, a great reach, and given his last few fights, has been able to implement his power as well at the same time. So this just has fireworks written all over it. Perhaps not a KO, perhaps not, of the same action that we would see against Wilder and Anthony Joshua, or even Wilder and Fury in the first few fights, but this is going to be a lot more technical. Tyson Fury is not going to he cannot be a fighting man in this fight. He's going to have to be a boxing man, because Alexander Usyk is a boxing man. And we have seen time and time again, the fighter that comes in the ring to fight has no shot in hell against the tacticians and the masters of the sweet science. And guys like Alexander Usyk, they are that guy. Okay, so this is going to be a tough fight for both men. I see this fight going 12 rounds. I'm not 100% sure who I'm predicting to take that fight yet, but all I could say is that Tyson Fury is going to have to fight in a few different ways throughout the fight to be able to succeed against the craftiness of Alexander Usyk. That's my firm belief, is that, Fury can only fight one style. Why? Because if he's going to come in like a Mack truck, Usyk is just so crafty and skilled that he'll be able to slip under those punches and make Fury pay. And he's got more weight on him now than he did when he was at cruiserweight, but he's got the same gas tank, the same footwork, and the same amount of experience throughout his amateur and professional career. And it sounds like I'm putting Alexander Usyk on a pedestal versus Fury. I'm not. Everybody knows how fond I am of Tyson Fury, but I really, really think that this is going to be Fury's toughest competition yet, and he's going to have to fight this fight stylistically a few different ways in order to crack that mysterious code in Alexander Usyk. So thanks a lot to Chris and Elan and Reed. All 3 homies asking the same question. I appreciate that. It means that everyone's, putting their ear to the ground a little bit more and focusing on the important fights. So respect to those guys. Really appreciate that. Next thing, what do we got? Have UFC fans moved on from Jon Jones and Conor McGregor? They obviously would sell crazy pay-per-view numbers, but the sport is growing so fast and seems like serious fans may not care as much. That's if they even come back. I mean, that's my man Simon from Spar Scene. He's got a great Instagram page on Instagram. That's where I like to share all of my stuff. Some of the memes, some of the future matchups, some of the polls, some of the highlight viral clips I take from Spar Scene. So shout out to Simon. Look, fans are going to buy Jon Jones and Conor McGregor events. You might be sick of their antics outside of the cage. I might be disappointed in guys like Jon Jones and Conor McGregor. You might be disappointed in people like Jon Jones and Conor McGregor. But when these guys sign that dotted line, the casuals and the hardcores, they tune in and they watch. Why? Because they know how to put on entertaining fights. They know how to bring entertaining press conferences. And most importantly, when that bell rings, they get our heart rates going. Not every fighter on the UFC roster gets our heart rates going like Jon Jones and Conor McGregor. So I absolutely think that the numbers will still be there. Yes, there has been a lot of fans in the last few years, but don't forget, a lot of these fans came throughout the pandemic when there was nothing else on. So maybe in the short term, those fans were willing to appreciate everything and anything. But as other sports started to come upon again, I believe those fans started to then go back to what they were doing before in the sense of tuning in to only the big pay-per-views and the big matches, which indeed Conor McGregor and Jon Jones would be on. So, you know, serious fans or not, a lot of MMA fans and fight fans in general are haters. And I don't necessarily call the serious fans always so serious. In fact, I think a lot of them are haters. And, you know, I have no problem with these two gentlemen coming back. And I know every person watching this doesn't either. So thanks to Simon. Great question, man. Jon Jones, Conor McGregor, when are we seeing you back, baby? We need you on the tube. That's what I want to see. And Simon actually has a two-parter, which, you know, lately I've been canceling a little bit of the two-parters from people. I've been limiting it to one answer just because I've been, you know, so fortunate to get more answers, or more questions rather. But Simon asked me a good one. He wants to know if someone wants to get into MMA or wants to get into a form of self-defense, rather, to have more confidence, what martial art would be the best for them? And I think a lot of people here are going to be expecting me to say boxing because that would be my main discipline, but I'd actually say wrestling or jiu-jitsu. Why? Because I think that being able to handle someone in a closer quarters versus fighting them at distance is actually a lot safer in the street. And I also think, especially on the wrestling side, from a state of mind standpoint, you're ready to go to the end. Wrestlers don't fuck around in the wrestling room. They will wrestle until their last breath. So I think, you know, pairing the takedowns and the takedown defense, and then also just being able to leverage your opponent, you know, I think that that's one important reason. But also from the conditioning and mentality side, I think that wrestling brings a sort of confidence and security that is important for teenagers and adults and kids, etc. So I would say wrestling and also jiu-jitsu, especially in the gi, because when you're fighting someone in the streets, you could use those grips just as if you were trying to submit someone with the gi on. So I think that jiu-jitsu and wrestling would be good, but let's be honest here. Nothing wrong also with knowing how to knock someone the fuck out, right? A couple of 1-1-2s, slip, 2-3-2. Nothing wrong with that, baby. But I would say the wrestling and jiu-jitsu side over actually striking. And, you know, once you've built up the resume in the jiu-jitsu and the wrestling side, then perhaps we'll take on a little bit of kickboxing, Muay Thai, and boxing. So thanks, Simon. A little two-parter for you. Make sure you follow Spar Scene, MMA News. Shout out to Simon. And I got my last one on the Fight Talk. Who do we got? From my lovely, lovely wife, how could I forget? She asks, GSP, Conor, Mike Tyson. Keep 2, toss 1. Why? It's a tough one. It's a heartbreaker because I got to toss my man George. Why do I got to toss him? I mean, let's be real here. I love GSP to death, but I ain't passing up an opportunity to kick it with Mike Tyson and Conor McGregor, whether we're on a yacht, we're doing ayahuasca, we're in the gym, and they're breaking down, you know, the fight game, and they're explaining to me their philosophies, or we're going shopping. I'd rather be kicking it with Uncle Mike and, you know, the notorious one, Conor McGregor. So shout out to my wife. That was a tough one initially, but we got it done, baby. So let's take a sip, man. I've been going a mile a minute. It's been a long day today. But we're happy pappy because we're on AC Radio, baby. And let's get into that fitness and sports. I got my man, Sam, with the plan. Shout out to Sam. Easiest way to get a lot of carbohydrates in if you're not a big eater. That's a great question because I think, you know, when you look on Instagram and social media, everything is always so geared towards weight loss. You know, even me, my content is so weight loss driven or how to put on size. but more so towards the weight loss side, because that's what the average person is really looking for. But then you got guys like Sam with a plan who want to gain weight, who want to gain mass, who want to fill out their t-shirts a little bit more. And he's asking, how do I get more carbs in my diet? And I'm here to tell you, man, that one of the greatest ways that you could do that is smoothies. Grab a smoothie, load it up with as many fruits as possible, which is a carbohydrate, okay, more of a complex carbohydrate, and then mix it up with some simple carbs. Take a packet or two of oatmeal and then dump that into your fruit smoothie. Maybe put a little scoop of protein in there as well to give a chocolatey kick. And then that's a great way to slurp down, not really the greatest word to use, some carbohydrates, you know. That is the best way. So, Sam, I would recommend starting your day, you know, with a big smoothie with a lot of fruits in it, a little bit of oats as well. Make sure you got your bananas in there. And from there, throughout the rest of the day, you want to be eating things like rice, like mashed sweet potato, like mashed potato. Stay away from the noodles. Stay away from more of the denser, simple carbohydrates that are going to fill you up faster, like breads and noodles. Go more towards the rice. Go more towards the oatmeal. Go more towards the cream of wheat. Go more towards the sweet and regular potato mash. You know, those are great ways to get your carbohydrates in. And lastly, another great way to get your carbohydrates in is always plan ahead. If you plan ahead, then you won't have to think on the fly what you should and shouldn't be eating, okay? So the one who is the most prepared will usually be the one who succeeds the most. Great question, Sam. And just because I love you, buddy, and your family, I'm going to answer that two-parter, baby. Any predictions for this upcoming season? Who wins each division? It's a great question. I'm going to pull them up right now. I'm just going to spin them right off the dome because I haven't done much analysis, but I think for the most part, I will be correct. AFC East, the Bills. AFC West, the Chiefs. AFC North, the Bengals. AFC South, I'm going to go with the Titans. And then my three teams that are going to make it into the wild card spot, I'm going to go with the Raiders, the Ravens, and lastly, I'm going to go with the Patriots. And then on the NFC side, let's see what we got here. This is going to be a little bit tougher. I got the NFC East. I'm going to go with the Eagles. Actually, I'm going with the Cowboys. I'm going to go with the Rams. I'm going to go with the Packers, and I'm going to go with the Bucks, obviously. And then what are the three teams that are going to come to the wild card playoffs? I am going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles, the San Francisco 49ers, and last but not least, the Arizona Cardinals. That's what I'm riding with. Thanks a lot, Sam. Appreciate the question, baby. And now we're moving on to one of the best segments of the show, motivation. And that's when you start to see the veins popping out, the skin turns all red, the sweat starts to pour through. Maybe I need a sip of Happy Dad because I get so passionate about it. I mean, one of the things that I've realized about myself is sometimes I want things for other people more than I want things for myself. And that's why when I get in front of the camera lately, it is about leading by example, because it's not enough for me to want your goals and your dreams more than I want my own goals and my own dreams. Because the way that it should really work is I should come first. I should be putting myself first. And that's what we're trying to put our nose to the ground to. And that's what I hope you guys are trying to put your nose to the ground to. You got to put your goals, your ambitions, and your priorities ahead of everybody else's. Because the only way you're going to succeed is when you're focusing on yourself first. Because when you neglect yourself, that's when you regret yourself. Let's move on, baby. We got that motivation. I can't wait for this one. What's your view on getting back into sports after being off for a few years? That's my man, Mikey Delight. Shout out to Mike. Appreciate you, man. I mean, look, most important thing is you got to get your mobility on point. Okay, whatever sport you are doing, you need to look up those sport-specific stretches so that going into the locker room, the body and mind is not cold. You have to prepare yourself for competition. You have to prepare your body to work. So the number one thing, A, is focusing on your mobility, focus on your hydration and your water intake. And lastly, watch film. I know that sounds so ridiculous, but put on YouTube, watch a little hockey if that's what you're getting back into, watch a little bit of boxing if that's what you're getting back into, watch some football drills if that's what you're getting back into. You got to start familiarizing the mind and the body with what you want it to do. So not only do you got to drink heaps of water, but also focus on your electrolyte count, aka hydration. Not only do you got to make sure that you're mobilized so that you don't pull a muscle and then you're a one and done, but lastly, plant the seed in your mind. Watch tape, watch film, watch highlights, get inspired. Take your favorite player from back in the day, your favorite athlete, and watch their highlight tapes. Get inspired. That's one of the greatest ways to get back into sports, because usually people want to get back into sports so that they'll be more sociable, and also so maybe perhaps they'll lose a bit of weight. But lastly, it's because they feel inspired, because it brings out that child that you once were. It brings back that nostalgia. It brings back that level of competition. And I encourage everybody to feed into that. You know, you should never, ever, ever turn your back on that inner child, because deep down, that inner child within knows how to live happy, knows how to live carefree, knows how to live with more of a smile on their face and appreciate the small things. So never shy away from that inner child. So that's what I got for you, Mikey Delight. Hydration, mobility, inspiration by watching film, watching your favorite athlete, and making sure that you're building that mind and body connection so that when you step on that field, step in that arena, or, you know, step on that mat, you're good to go. So shout out to Mikey Delight. I appreciate that question. And next question is from a dear friend of mine and also a coach of mine, Joe Rinaldi. Shout out to Big Joe. Follow him on Instagram at Joe Rinaldi and on TikTok as well. One of the most inspirational guys I know. Goes to bed at 7 o'clock at night, wakes up at 2:30 to 3:30 in the morning. He's running 1 mile personal best in the mean streets of Philadelphia at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. He's an absolute nutcase, but we love him for that. Shout out to Joe. What's the hardest thing you've ever had to handle? A circumstance that you didn't get to choose? The first thing that pops in my mind is death. Anytime I've had to experience death around me from family members and loved ones, that has always been the most difficult. Those have always been circumstances that I didn't have a choice about. And, you know, like anything else in the moment, it really, really stings and it gets you and it pulls on those heartstrings and you start to go down memory lane, and perhaps you have a few regrets along the way as well. And, you know, you also question, you know, the meaning of life and death. Why are we given life to then have to deal with death? And why does it even exist? Why do bad things happen? And all these questions and answers start popping into your mind. But after having a son, the only thing that gives me peace about the certainty of death is knowing also that there's the certainty of life and rebirth. And once you've had that feeling and that experience happen to you, you start to in fact, realize that, you know, death is almost as beautiful as life or as birth. And, you know, it sounds a little bit deep. It sounds a little bit gory, but it's real. And, you know, I appreciate Joe for bringing that up, because I would say that I am fortunate enough that I haven't had to deal with so much in my life that I didn't have a choice about. I feel like I've had a lot of choices in my life. So death would be the number one that stands out to me. So shout out to Joe. Hope I didn't change the groove of the show a little bit, but you know, AC, man, I keep it real with you. And I know a lot of you feel the same way. I know a lot of you listening to this are scared to death about the thought of death. So, you know, I hope in some way this finds you a little bit of comfort. And if it didn't, I apologize. And you know where to holler at your boy if you're looking for some comfort, baby. And I'm talking about emotional support, nothing less, nothing more. Don't get any ideas. So next thing we got, baby, Andreas, my man from John Abbott Rugby, one of my day ones, one of my favorite guys to get on that rugby field with. Shout out to Big Dre. You should have known by now. What drives you to always be a positive impact in others? Did you know that the effect you have on people is a powerful one? I got to be real with you. This one shook the shit out of me, because when I look at myself internally, I don't really look at myself as a positive person at all. But I guess when I relate to what I was telling you before, where I want things more for others than they want for themselves, I guess now I do understand what Andreas means by that. So, where does that come from? I have no fucking clue. All I know is that I see the potential in each and every one of you every single day. And if I didn't see the potential in you, you'll probably be able to tell also, because I won't bother. But for the most part, I see the potential in every single individual. And I think that everybody does have a choice in order to be the best version of themselves. They just need to guide their path to, the avenues that they actually care to succeed in. And I think that the average person doesn't have hobbies, doesn't have passions, doesn't have a job that they love the shit out of. So they kind of just coast through life. And that's not what we're trying to do. So what drives me? What drives me is authenticity and being myself. And this is exactly who the fuck I am, Dre. So that's why it drives me to be a positive person to others. I appreciate the shit out of you for that question. And, that really does mean a lot to me, because I personally don't view myself as that much, maybe as a positive person from always, sometimes a self-talk standpoint. So I'm really happy to know that my external talk to y'all is a positive one. So shout out to Dre. And there goes the sound of that bell, baby. And I got my last question from the motivation segment for the Q&A. My man Vinny asks me, why are challenges important in life? And why do we not appreciate things when they're given to us easily versus working hard and earning it? That's a great question, because to me, this is what it's all about. We go to the grocery store, we buy fruits and vegetables, and we don't even realize that if we were to grow these fruits and vegetables on our own and really put the hard work and time into these crops, how much more we would appreciate them when we were eating them, how much more we would appreciate them when washing them and cutting into them. So really what that tells me is that life is always about overcoming the challenge. Whether it's winning a tough contest in a competition, hockey, football, boxing, jiu-jitsu, that thrill of overcoming something difficult, there's nothing better. Climbing to the top of a mountain, getting to the end of a 90-day challenge when you really didn't think that you were going to get it. Being able to free yourself of an addiction or a substance that is completely holding you down. Those feelings, nobody could ever fucking take away from you. But if you were to just take a magic pill to fix all of your problems, you would never truly appreciate the process of trying to fix them and trying to better yourself, because you would always know that you'd have that safety net of that magic fucking pill to just free you of all of your issues and your problems. So challenges are the most important thing that are going to come our way. Think about a mother giving birth. They have a challenge. They have to squeeze a baby out of their private parts. That is a challenge. But the woman never thinks about the delivery after the baby has come. Why? Because they are overwhelmed with love and joy due to the fact that they have overcame that mountain of giving birth and are now given the gift that anybody in this world would be the most thankful for, and that's a baby. So, plain and simple, there is no life without challenge. When we have seen it time and time again in trust fund kids and spoiled people, et cetera, when they're given and they haven't earned, they feel worthless and they feel empty, and they project their insecurities and their troubles on others. And most of the time, those others are hardworking individuals that are always up for the challenge, always up for the rise, fall in love with the journey, fall in love with the process, and don't only focus on the result. And that, to me, is a winner. And with that, AC Radio, we're out.
Big cheese, no design on my jacket. Work hard, now I'm changing my bracket. Talk tough, we ain't hear that racket. Dots came in, you know how to stack it. Don't take it wrong, but I'ma need my ends though. I got tigers on my chest like Kenzo. Rail came, yeah, he putting that Benz though. Carol's here, man, you know he stay 10 toes. Big dog, man, you know I ain't worried. Bent up, so I'm talking real slow.